Welcome back to Outdoors with Larry Ray on ESPN 790 AM. Brought to you proudly by the Tennessee Wildlife and Resources Agency.
Hey, good Saturday morning as you listen to that in the background. Welcome to Outdoors with Larry Ray. And you know that's not me rubbing my if I was a cricket, I'd be rubbing my legs together right now, making that chirping sound. That's not chirping, not chirping. We might let you folks know before we introduce these guests here coming up, Bill Cooksey. These next two guests normally in the studio, but we are saying a shout-out to Steve Turpin, who would normally be on this show as he has every year, but he had a real bad case of vertigo. And so we're just hoping that the doctors were able to switch and get him going, because I know this is his passion season, and I'd hate to. Bill, maybe that's why he's got vertigo. I don't know.
Well, there's that, Larry, but also I think Steve would definitely approve his stand-in. I mean,
I
jumping
think,
at the phone.
Yeah,
and heck, he had killed a turkey before the next guest ever had.
I realize that, but these next guests are. They've been joined at the hip almost a lot, because I know Russell Ginn could not probably wouldn't be doing what he's doing now unless he had the tutelage of this guy that keeps making all this noise on the other end of the line.
Absolutely.
And that's the Plain Jane box call. I assume, Charles Petrey, you're hitting on the box call, right?
Yeah, just doing a little talking there, sweet talk like the hens do when they walk through the woods early in the morning on the limb and everything. Kind of gets you excited, making you think that old Tom's going to fly down there in front of you.
You're making me excited right now. I may have to leave it to Shelby here, but appreciate both of you guys being with. Charles, tell our listeners out there about, I know you're a retired State Farm agent and things along that line, about your love of turkey hunting and making your calls. How did you get into that?
Well, I got interested in turkey hunting a long time ago. That was when, if we saw a track or a feather or something, it was a good day.
Right, that's Bill Cooksey's already said that. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I always liked woodworking, and so it was just a challenge to make a turkey call. The first ones I made were scratch boxes.
Uh-huh.
And they worked real well. And not many people use a scratch box. People want stuff that looks like it was made for the space age now. I'm not even sure that many of them make a box call. Well, but I've always loved to use a box call, mouth call, slate. Never could master the trumpet call.
Not many can.
That's probably one of the best calls there is, but I have never been able to make that work for me successfully.
If Turpin had been here, he'd give us some demonstrations and everything. But I know, Russell, I know you got to credit Charles for helping your career, right?
Oh, absolutely. I've learned so much from him on the boxes. I mean, it's just incredible the amount of time and effort that goes into making a box and one that will actually play. I mean,
yeah.
You go through countless of them that, some of the prettiest wood and it won't make a sound. So there's a lot of, education involved with building the box call.
Well, I know the Tennessee Outdoor Writers Association, I know one man's got a collection of them because he bid on them every year when we would have one of Charles Petrey's calls, because both these guys are local guys. Russell, tell our listeners what you're doing now, because you stepped into a different world here. So tell our listeners what you're doing.
Well, I'm still running my little line of calls, but I went to work for Rolling Thunder, and I'm building on their wood products and thoroughly enjoying it. It's a different environment than what I'm used to. So
you're working out of the Rolling Thunder metropolis of of really what we call the Buck Gardner building down in Midtown.
That's right.
If you've never been down there, folks, it's on Monroe or something. What is that?
On Roswell.
Yeah. And Petrey just going crazy in the background there. That makes it sound like it, But I know, Bill, you're familiar with Rolling Thunder, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I'm having to deal with Spencer every day, though, if you'd have to. I don't know about all that.
Well, it's a good thing he's not here every day. He stops and checks in, hangs out, and he'll do a lot of videoing and stuff like that here.
Yeah, well,
a lot of interviews.
He was talking there because Spence Halford, of course, we're talking about, and he's everywhere, right, Cooksey? I mean, he seems like it.
Absolutely.
He's all over Facebook. But I'm so happy for Russell, and I know you are, Charles, to see his growth.
Yeah. I tell you, a lot of your listeners remember Robert Cliff.
Yes.
Robert Cliff's the one that taught me everything I know about a box call. He taught me how to listen to the wood and let the wood tell me what I needed to do to make it sound.
Mr. Cliff is started a lot of careers. He was part of my venture into this, and the man could tell a story, couldn't he, Charles?
He could, and unfortunately, Mr. Cliff's in a nursing home.
Yes.
In Bolivar, and he's not doing real well. Things are slipping away from him.
Yeah, and Miss Inez is still too, right? Isn't she?
Yeah, she's in the same nursing home.
Same nursing home.
He checked himself in because that was the only way he could see her.
Yeah, isn't that something? But Robert Clift, one of the great ones when it comes to for the box call, the last call is what he calls his box calls. And, of course, I have a collection of these things, and sometimes I'm afraid to take them in the woods, Cooksey, because they're so pretty. But, you know, but they do work, folks, besides the beauty, you know, and Russell will tell this too. So, all right, does any of y'all plan to be hunting next weekend, or y'all going to be able to hunt?
Charles? I'm not going to hunt this next weekend, but next Wednesday, the 7th, I'll be headed out to Texas.
There he goes. I wonder where he's going, Russell. You think you know?
Probably Wheeler, if I had to guess.
I think Shamrock, Wheeler, and all that area. He keeps wanting me to go out there, but I'm afraid the wind would blow me down.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the only place I've ever heard that you turkey hunt it, but you have to have a concrete block chained to your leg. You know, so
if you ever go out there and the wind's not blowing, you better go home because something bad's going to happen.
Well, it's going to blow out there for sure and everything. But I know we'll talk about you. I know, Russell, you remember your first bird you killed. I know you do, buddy.
Oh, I do. I was just talking about it the other day. It was just a.
It was what?
About an inch spur, 8-inch beard, about a 1-inch spur.
Whew, okay.
And the guy that taught me how to turkey hunt called him in, and he came right in, almost like he was caged up around the corner or something. But I shot him, and we were just kind of sitting there and didn't jump up and get him or anything. And it was probably about 10 minutes, and that bird jumped up and took off running towards the property line. We both jumped up and ran after him, finally got that bird down at the property line. But the very next bird I ended up harvesting by myself, well, he was laying there flopping, and I really didn't know much about how much they would flop.
Yes.
So I backed up about 20 yards and shot him again just to keep from having to chase him.
Well, I think a lot of people. Now, Charles, you remember your first turkey, or that's a long way now. You remember?
Well, one of the first ones I killed was in South Alabama.
South Alabama. I knew we tied.
10-gauge automatic.
10-gauge?
A half a mile.
10-gauge automatic? Okay.
Yeah. And
you hear that, Cooksey? Yeah, right?
Took me in. He had on gray khaki pants, bald hat, white emblems on it.
Come on.
And he had a Lynch call. And I said, "What is that, Billy?" He said, "That's a turkey yucker."
Turkey
and
yucker.
He sat down behind a tree, set me about 60 yards closer to the birds that were down in the swamp, and I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
I sat down in some blackberries so they'd hide me. And the first thing I knew, a turkey stuck his head up on the other side of those blackberries and gobbled it like scared me to death.
Did you killed him with that 10-gauge, though, didn't you?
I killed him with that 10-gauge, and like Russell said, he flopped, and I shot him again.
Well, I tell you what, if you killed him with a 10-gauge, I wouldn't have known if I hit him or not because I'd be on the ground with the bird, you know, because that ought to get him. But, again, we're talking to Charles Petrey and Russell Ginn. Bill Cooks is our co-host. Shelby McCall is our show producer.
Real quick, hitting on that 10-gauge, that's probably one of the biggest changes in turkey hunting over the last 30 years has been the ammo. I mean, now you're getting performance out of a 20-gauge.
Yes.
That's kind of like that 10-gauge that Charles Petrey was carrying years ago.
And the 410.
I've gone from a 10 to a 12 to a 20 3-inch, with TSS shot.
Yes.
And it shoots the tide. I've got a red dot scope on it.
I guarantee you that he patterns it, but a 20 gauge. But I'm seeing 410s now. Bill, we talked about this with the ammo.
They're viable. You just have to understand their limitations, but their limitations are not severe. I mean, if you like shooting turkeys out to 40 yards, you have your choice of guns nowadays. You don't have to be all special.
But you did. But you didn't, as Charles was saying. I mean, the 10 gauge, 12 gauge. My first turkey, first 3 or 4 turkeys, I use a 20 gauge now, and it just the ammo is so much different if you can find it. I understand there is some ammo shortage, but
not in my gun case.
I'll give a shout out. There's some ammo down at Avery right now.
There is some ammo at Avery right now. Did y'all hear that?
Turkey loads there the other day.
Oh, well, that's.
I already hear the tires screeching going down there.
Yeah, well, you're going to hear me screeching too. I know that for a fact because.
Well, I tell you, my 20 gauge when I was shooting heavy shot number 7.
Yes.
It was good to 48 yards with that, and with this TSS shot, at 45 measured yards, it puts almost the whole load in a sheet of notebook paper, and that is way, way, way too tight. Because if you wiggle, you've missed it.
You've missed it, hasn't it? Yeah. Well, we just got a couple of minutes here, so I've asked the other guys. I want to ask Petrey this: what's the closest you shot a turkey, Charles Petrey?
The closest I've shot one was about 4 steps.
That's enough for me. Okay, I
was shooting a 10 gauge, and I got one BB in his head.
One BB. Oh man, that's a double drama. Hey guys, thank y'all for being with us. I wish you could have been in the studio maybe next year, but Russell, Charles, hope you have a great season. Stay safe, buddy, and we'll stay in touch. Okay.
Hope you do too.
Always a pleasure.
All right.
We'll catch you later.
All right, play me some music. There you go. We'll be right back on Outdoors with Larry Ray.